All right, let's get into this. If you're running a business today, you know the world isn't exactly standing still.
No, definitely not. It's more like riding a really fast train, maybe. The landscape just keeps changing.
That's a good way to put it.
Mm.
And our sources for this deep dive, they really focus on two huge forces driving that change.
Mm-hmm.
Technology, obviously, and all these interconnected global issues.
Mm-hmm. And understanding these isn't just, nice to have. It's actually fundamental for your
Yeah.
business to survive, let alone thrive.
Right. If you don't adapt, you risk getting left behind pretty quickly while competitors grab the new opportunities.
Exactly. It happens fast.
So our mission here, what we're trying to do in this deep dive is cut through all the noise. We've got the material articles, research notes,
Yeah, lots of stuff.
and we want to pull out the absolute most crucial insights and maybe some surprising details too about how these tech and global shifts specifically impact you, the business owner.
Whether you're just starting out or, running something established.
Precisely. Think of it as your shortcut, getting you genuinely well-informed on these trends that you just can't ignore.
Okay, so jumping in. What's really striking from the sources is how they talk about technology. It's like, well, a double-edged sword,
Huge potential, huge advantages.
but also, yeah, significant risks. Businesses simply have to find ways to bring in new advances successfully.
Or, like the sources point out, you face failure. You're too slow. Or made you jump in but back the wrong horse, invest in the wrong tech.
Yeah, that can be even worse. And they mention how fast cutting-edge stuff becomes, well, redundant, obsolete.
And entire business models just
Mm.
vanish because technology made them irrelevant.
And this impact, it's not just about making things, goods or services. It's hitting administration hard, and especially marketing.
Okay, let's kick off with marketing then, because the sources flag social media advertising SMA as possibly the biggest recent change there.
Right. SMA, they define it pretty simply, just using social media channels to get targeted commercial messages out.
Straight to potential customers. And the list of channels is, well, it's huge now.
Yeah, you've got the big ones, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube.
But also blogs, podcasts, online communities. It's not the future, it's very much now.
And the benefits look pretty compelling. Businesses using SMA, they're seeing positive results.
Sometimes even better results when they mix it with traditional methods, right?
Exactly. Plus, and this is key, compared to older advertising, it's often relatively inexpensive.
Cheaper, yeah. And the sources say it's generally easy to use and track how well it's doing.
But, and here's the twist the sources bring up pretty quickly. The downsides.
Yes. The big one.
Yeah.
You kind of lose control. Over the narrative, anyway.
Totally. You can't really dictate what people write online about your business or your product.
Bloggers, reviewers, just random people online. They can discuss, review, criticize.
So even ridicule sometimes. That's the thing. The real insight here isn't just where the ad is placed.
Yeah.
It's that you're stepping into this arena where the audience has a really powerful public voice. A voice you can't control. That's the fundamental shift.
Okay, moving from the digital side to the physical, manufacturing. The sources spotlight 3D printing and robotics.
Yeah, interesting stuff. 3D printing or additive manufacturing, basically building physical things layer by layer from a digital file.
And the applications have just exploded, haven't they? From little prototypes to, like, entire buildings now.
Exactly. Used across so many industries for really precise, complex objects, things that were hard or impossible before.
And then robotics. The whole engineering side of designing, building, using robots.
And the sources emphasize that these modern robots, they're getting so complex, they can do tasks way faster, way more accurately than humans.
Which points to a pretty significant future shift in how things get made.
For sure. But the immediate decision for a business owner looking at this tech, it often comes down to cost effectiveness.
Right, because the initial outlay for robots or fancy 3D printers, that can be high, plus maintenance.
Definitely. But the sources suggest that over the long haul, it can actually work out cheaper than manual labor.
When you factor in human error, maybe slower speeds.
Exactly. The insight isn't just the sticker price. It's that long-term calculation, value versus human cost and efficiency.
Okay, changing gears again, let's talk administration. The sources really hammer the impact of smartphones.
No, totally. They're just such a massive part of life now. Didn't the material say the average Australian spends like 5.5 hours a day on their phone?
Yeah, staggering number.
Yeah.
And that fundamentally changes how businesses communicate,
Yeah.
especially with customers.
And all the apps, the web-based software. I mean, a business owner can run so much just from their phone now.
Checking security cams, email, video conferences, it's all mobile.
And interestingly, the cost of using this tech has changed too.
How so?
Well, the sources mention it's cheaper to get custom software developed now, and you can even outsource it, right, to skilled IT people overseas, maybe at a lower cost.
Ah, right. So the insight there is its incredible accessibility
Mm.
and decentralization. You're not tied to a desk or a server room anymore.
Yeah, that freedom. And it ties straight into another huge tech shift, the sources detail, remote work.
hmm All these rapid tech improvements have made flexible work real. Working from home or anywhere, really.
Think about platforms like Zoom. Came out in 2011. Now it's basically the go-to for video conferencing.
Millions of people using it daily. Even with some privacy questions raised along the way, its ease of use just made it take off.
And the benefits for businesses going remote, they're significant. Less spent on office space, for one.
Plus access to a bigger talent pool, maybe even internationally.
And employees get flexibility, which can be huge for work-life balance, travel, home commitments.
The sources note, productivity doesn't necessarily drop. If it's managed right, it can actually go up.
Right. No commute time, work arrangements that fit people's lives better.
And let's be honest, remote work wasn't just a nice to have during COVID, it became essential.
Absolutely. It proved itself as a way to keep businesses running when offices were shut. Business continuity.
The sources also mention other tools like G Suite, Slack.
Yeah, all those things for sharing documents, chatting, keeping remote teams connected and productive.
So the real takeaway seems to be that remote work isn't just a perk. It's a resilient business model powered by tech that changes how and where work happens.
Exactly. It's a fundamental shift.
Okay, the last big tech area the sources hit on is customer databases.
Right. Basically, an organized way to keep track of info on your customers, current and potential.
Contact details, personal info, what they buy when you talk to them, their preferences, all that stuff.
And technology has totally transformed this. There's just so much more data available now, from online searches, interactions.
So databases can be much bigger, much more detailed, more sophisticated.
And businesses can build their own, maybe starting simple, like with a spreadsheet.
Or they can actually buy access to data from market research firms.
Right. The benefits are clear. Easier communication, targeted messages.
Building better relationships, hopefully leading to more loyalty and repeat business.
But there are costs. Building your own takes time. Buying data or investing in proper database systems can get expensive, especially as you grow.
And then there are the risks. Big ones. And legal stuff.
Yeah, holding customer data makes you a target for hackers. Identity theft is profitable if they get sensitive info.
And that stat was pretty stark. 1 in 4 Australians has been a victim of identity crime.
Sobering, isn't it? And that leads straight into legal compliance, things like the Privacy Act here in Australia.
Which sets out rules for how you collect, use, secure, and share personal info.
Basically, only collect what you really need. Get consent, especially for sensitive stuff, or if you want to use the info for something else.
And the Bupa case study they included. That's a real cautionary tale.
Definitely. They had big problems. An accidental email disclosure.
Affecting visa applicants, yeah.
Yeah.
And then an employee actually selling data on the dark web. Tens of thousands of people compromised.
It's bad. The insight here isn't just about having good IT security, though that's vital.
It's more that managing customer data responsibly, legally, technically, ethically, is a core business risk.
Exactly. It needs constant attention. It's not just a box to tick.
Okay, let's shift gears now. Moving from tech to global issues.
Right. The sources talk about how the world feels much smaller, even though the population's growing. Globalisation.
Driven partly by trade barriers coming down. And this creates both massive opportunities and, well, new problems for businesses.
First up, using overseas suppliers and getting resources from abroad.
For Australian businesses, the sources say a big plus is access to a global supply network.
Yeah, wider range materials, finished products, often cheaper too.
Because of lower labor costs, maybe, different taxes, free trade agreements, lowering tariffs.
And you can source stuff you just can't get locally. That's huge.
Technology helps here too, right? Internet, Skype, Zoom, Google Meets. Easier to find suppliers and talk face-to-face across continents.
Definitely makes it more feasible. But a really crucial point the sources make is about choosing suppliers carefully, specifically socially responsible ones.
Ah, yeah. Ignoring that can lead to serious backlash from employees, customers, damage your brand.
But there are downsides to global sourcing too. Hidden costs, maybe, related to different cultures, time zones.
Long lead times, potentially.
Yeah.
And just finding the right supplier who meets your standards. That takes time and effort.
Mm-hmm. So the insight seems to be global sourcing offers advantages, sure, but it adds complexity. You need to do your homework on partners, manage logistics, navigate cultural differences. Needs patience.
Okay, let's flip it. Instead of buying from overseas, selling overseas, becoming an exporter.
Right, a local business making goods for customers in other countries.
And those falling trade barriers, they've opened up huge international markets, led to big growth for many Aussie businesses.
The sources mention strong demand for Australian steppe commodities, premium food products, especially in growing economies like China,
The benefits are pretty clear. More customers, bigger markets.
which means more potential profit. Plus, it spreads your risk. You're not just relying on the local market.
But to make it work, the sources stress getting out there.
Yeah.
Boots on the ground.
Yeah. Meet potential customers. See the market yourself. Check out local pricing. Get a feel for how business actually gets done there.
Because the risks are real too. Different cultures, languages, ways of doing business.
It takes time to understand all that, and there can be hidden costs, like dealing with different regulations, finding support, finding customers. It's a big investment of time and money. Though the Australian Trade and Investment Commission, Austrad, gets a mention. They actively help businesses find those overseas opportunities and navigate exporting, so support is available.
And just to show the scale we're talking about, that stat about exports to China in 2021, over $200 billion.
Yeah, wild number. Over a third of Australia's total exports that year. Really shows the potential size of these markets.
And to make all this more concrete, the sources give a great case study. Ferguson, Australia.
Ah, yes, the rock lobster guys. A real export success story.
It started with some smart thinking, apparently.
Mm.
Market research back in 2002 showed people loved lobster, but hated shelling it. Messy job.
Yeah, I can relate. So they developed value-added products, ready-to-eat shelled lobster.
Which was a hit both here and overseas. Smart move.
And they didn't just sell the product. They tapped into global food trends, portion control, nice packaging, set prices.
And telling the story behind it, sustainability seems key to their brand.
Definitely. Earned them international awards. Shows the value of really understanding global consumers.
They also grew through acquisitions,
Right.
Buying other seafood brands, export facilities.
Yeah, back in 2015, expanded lobster production, got into tuna, quadrupled their projected turnover, strategic growth.
And they did the hard yards, getting accredited for all the key markets: China, Japan, US, Russia, EU, Middle East.
And that sustainability focus you mentioned, they were the first globally with Friend of the Sea certification for multiple wild species, first and only in Australia for southern rock lobster sustainability.
So the insight from Ferguson isn't just about a clever product. It's market understanding, strategy, compliance.
And really using sustainability not just as a buzzword, but as a core part of their value in the global market.
But even a success like Ferguson isn't immune to global shocks. The sources talk about challenges. COVID, for instance.
Yeah, hit them hard. Freight prices tripled because fewer international flights. Orders dropped. They needed government help.
And then that unofficial trade issue with China in late 2020.
Right. The sources link it factually to comments made by the Australian PM about COVID origins. Suddenly, a key market faced disruption.
Shows how quickly things can change,
Yeah.
but they adapted.
They did, found new export markets like Hong Kong, and developed more products specifically for the local Aussie market, too, in 2022.
It's a powerful example. Even successful global players need to be agile, ready to pivot when the world throws curveballs.
Absolutely. So looking back at everything, the tech changes, the global complexities, the big message from these sources seems pretty clear. Adaptability isn't optional anymore.
No, it's foundational, essential for success. Technology isn't just tools. It's reshaping operations, markets, relationships.
And globalization. Huge opportunities, yes, but it demands careful navigation. Different markets, cultures, rules, supply chains, always with an eye on risks that can pop up unexpectedly.
So, thinking about you, the listener, navigating your own business path and all this,
Yeah, with tech evolving so fast, global dynamics shifting constantly.
it really brings up a key question for you to ponder, doesn't it? What's the single most critical part of your mindset as a business owner that you need to cultivate to ensure that long-term resilience, that adaptability?
Is it just committing to always be learning? Or maybe a really deep focus on ethics in data, in supply chains everywhere?
Or maybe it's something else entirely. Definitely something worth thinking about as you build or steer your business through this changing world.